هذا
لا أنا عندي واحد آخر في البيت يعني. عندي واحد آخر في البيت.
شيخ نوح
لا
أنذرتك يا شيخ أن تنضم مع المشوشين. نصحت لك والله بيخذلوك، هذا كلهم بيخذلوك والله، وأنت أحوج. الله المستعان. Pyramid, right, Yusuf? G, right? That's what we need. طيب.
Somebody's gonna ask a question. What's that smoke on the table?
Bismillah.
طيب. بسم الله. طيب. It says here on this cup, by the appointment of His Majesty, the King of Sweden. It's not just an average coffee mug or tea mug right here. Huh? Allah Alam.
Is that to you?
Allah knows best.
This is a question
My
answer
intentions
tonight,
are
right?
known by me and Allah.
Question and answer time, right?
طيب.
Bismillah.
Let's get started, inshallah. Okay, first question says,
What's that in your hand?
تفضل.
It's brother Idris from Toronto. Says, in the Durud Ibrahima, why was Ibrahim mentioned as Muhabba bihi, since the Prophet is greater?
Repeat the question, please.
Mushabba bihi. In the Durud Ibrahima, why was Ibrahim mentioned as the Muhabba bihi, since the Prophet is greater?
I'm not sure of the actual terminology being used here. Mushabbah bihi, muhabba bihi, ma adri. I don't know what that means, or what's intended by that from our brother Idris, Hafidhullah, Allah preserve him. Perhaps he or someone else may be asking with regards to the why was Ibrahim alayhi salam mentioned first before Muhammad. Perhaps I don't know. Ma adri. The question is unclear to me. Allahu a'lam. Follow Sean. I know you had a question.
So first of all, what's the definition and the identifiers of a fasiq?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Questions regarding the verse in Surah Al-Hujurat. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, if a fasiq or when a fasiq comes to you with news, then make clear, lest you would afflict the people with an act of ignorance, jahala, and then you would regret later on. Well known verse Surah Al-Hujurat. What's the definition of a fasiq? What's meant by a fasiq? So on and so forth. We say that a fasiq is someone who's doing one of the following things. Number one, he's a person who is making a major sin without tawbah. Or he's making a major sin in public without tawbah. And or a person who continues to disobey Allah, even if it's a minor sin, but he continues to practice it and scorns the act, looks down upon the act, and this person, for one reason or another, has lost the necessary shyness and shame with regards to this act, whether he's advised or not, whether the person has been warned or not. He knows that this act is from the muharramat, the unlawful things, whether it's a major sin or a minor sin. Obviously, a major sin is far worse. A minor sin is far less. But the concept of looking down upon the major sins or looking down upon the minor sins, let alone looking down upon a sin which could be from the kaba'ir, but culturally or socially it is from the sagha'ir. It's a small thing to the people in the people's eyes, but it's a major sin in the eyes and the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ has told us, إِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحَقَّرَاتِ الذُّنُوبِ. He says, beware of sins that are muhaqqarat, sins that are looked down upon, that are scorned. Whenever the person is taken into account for those sins, the Prophet ﷺ says, أَهْلَكَتْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مَتَى مَا يُؤْخَذُ بِهَا صَاحِبُهَا أَهْلَكَتْهُ. Okay, man qala alayhi salatu wassalam. He says that whenever the people are taken into account for those muhaqqarat, those sins that are looked down upon, they will be destroyed. And in the other hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, with regards to the similarity of sins that are looked down upon, the valley or the meeting place, the picnic area where the people came, the hadith says, فَجَاءَ ذَا بِعُودٍ وَجَاءَ ذَا بِعُودٍ وَجَاءَ ذَا بِعُودٍ. He says this man brought a stick, he brought a twig, he brought a piece of bark, until they had enough fire to cook their bread. So a fasiq, as the ulama of Islam say, is someone who is making a major sin. He's doing this major sin, or he's made this major sin and he doesn't make tawbah, and he has no concern, he does it publicly. Or someone who continues and persists stubbornly out of obstinance, making this sagha'ir over and over again in public, not caring. This is the general definition of someone who is a fasiq. Obviously, sins, they vary. There are different levels of sins. أَلَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِأَكْبَرِ الْكَبَائِرِ. The Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith of Abi Bakr, well known hadith in Sahihain, shall I not tell you akbar al-kabair, the worst of the chief sins, of the cardinal sins, the major sins. Now, everybody understand this? إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah says the shirk is a great wrong, the greatest wrong. So sins are of different, varying degrees and levels. However, as we said before, there are certain sins which are from the kaba'ir, which the people look down upon, and has become culturally accepted. And a Muslim would not be considered to be a harami, quote unquote. They wouldn't be considered a fasiq for doing this sin, but other sins they would be considered to be a fasiq for doing. Everybody understand this? Many issues. Whether it's the issue of isbal, whether it's the issue of halq al-lihya, shaving the beard, whether it's the issue of taswir, taking pictures, image making, whether it is the issue of not praying in jama'ah, whether it's the issue of not making salah, not praying 5 daily prayers. It's considered something that's culturally, easy, simple. But the man who beat his wife up, you say he's a fasiq, a zalim. The man who was a child pervert, they say he's a harami. The man who's smuggling alcohol, who's smuggling drugs, the flesh of swine, pills into the lands of the Muslims, they say he's a harami. He's a fasiq. But the one who didn't pray this fajr in the morning is what? Say he's not a fasiq. This is a reality. Anyone who's lived overseas in the lands of the Muslims. Certain things that are culturally totally rejected, and others are totally accepted, rather the exact opposite. When you grow your beard, lift up your thobe, pray all 5 salat in jama'ah, you get a special title and term. You're given, you're anointed to a higher level. Mutawwa, sheikh. Everybody understand this? To give you this term for doing the basic things that you're supposed to do, that every Muslim is supposed to do. Everybody understand this? So this is a general concept of the fisq and the fasiq. Obviously, a fisq literally means khuruj, something going out, jumping out. I say a fawasiq. A fawasiq wal khams. A mouse, a rat that jumps. You see it, now you don't. Comes out of the hole, comes out of the crevice, and then it's what? It's gone. Tom and Jerry. Tom chases Jerry. Jerry what? Escapes in a little small tiny hole. Gone. Everybody understands? This is a reality. This is an honest reality of fisq, yani. It's pop in and out. Everybody got this? So the ulama say, khuruj ala ta'atillah. It says what? Oh, khuruj an ta'atillah. It's person leaving and exiting Allah's obedience. Just like nifaq, nafaqa, a jarboa, jarboa or yarboa in Arabic. A little small chinchilla type Pokemon looking thing. Runs around, comes out the burrow, goes into the burrow. You don't see it, now you don't. You chase it in one hole, comes out what? Everybody understand this? Everybody got this Bugs Bunny cartoon? He goes into the hole, he comes out another hole with the rifle and shoots him. It's a nifaq. One day is one thing, next day, something else. You think you know me, but you really don't. Wal-iyadhu billah. So these are some of the basic meanings of these things. The only reason why I mentioned Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, is for us to understand the connection of language with what? Culture. As we said all the time. Language and what? Culture. Let alone Islam and Sharia. And the Arabs, their language, as Shaykh Hussain Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim and others mention, is not just lugha, mawdu'a, but it's mawdu'a bil-'ad, bil-urf, jumal, sentences, statements, cliches. It's a complete system. Everybody got this? So this is the general concept of a fasiq and of fisq. And obviously, if a person is a fasiq, then there's a list of rulings that now pertain to this individual. Shahada, testimony. Wilaya, being the wali. A person being the ruler. Can a fasiq be a ruler? Tayyib. Taking knowledge from that person. And the list goes on. There's a list of rulings that now pertain to fisq. And that is why the people of knowledge, they say that fisq, bid'ah, kufr, ma'siyah, nifaq, dhulm, these are all min bab al-asma'i wal-ahkam. Al-asma' wal-ahkam. This is very important. Ism, mu'min, is an ism. Muhsin, Muslim, kafir, fasiq, zalim, asi, munafiq. These are all asma'. And these are all also ahkam as well. And they're rulings. You can't just call somebody a fasiq, call someone a munafiq, call someone a mu'min, etc. Everybody got this? Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Would it be more than someone sinning openly?
More than sinning openly? You know, a person can make a sin in public and not be a fasiq. Especially if you make tawbah, if you stop. I did that sin 2-3 years ago. Khalas, I've moved on. That's in the past. I'm not doing that anymore. I made tawbah, I've rectified my life. Or I did it and it wasn't from the kaba'ir. Everybody understand? It's not from the kaba'ir. It wasn't from the major sins. Not saying that it's okay to do it, but it's not from the kaba'ir. Everybody understand this? It's not a major sin. So it depends on how the person did it. Making tawbah, scorning it, looking down upon it, having shame. You found some bad things on someone's phone. It's not the same as someone did it in public. It's a difference. This person is hiding it. Not saying that the fisq doesn't apply, but they're what? They're trying to hide it. Some type of shame. Wallahu alam. And there's obviously a difference between someone hiding it from you, but publicizing it to 10 other people. They actually is not hiding it. There's no shame, but he's actually just hiding it from you. That's the type of nifaq there. I don't want you to know about it. I'm fooling you, but 10 other people what? It's okay. So there's a difference. There's a difference. Wallahu alam.
Question here. What do you think about nootropics? Cognitive enhancer that help focus, memory. What is it?
Repeat the question, please.
I'm thinking the brother asked a question about cognitive enhancers that help with focus, memory, etc.
Adderalls, right. I'll say this. I had a brother, I won't mention his name. We always have stories, but these are true stories. He took an Adderall one day in my house in Medina. He warned me that he said, Mufti, I want to take it, all right? So the brother brought me these pills on the airplane from America. The guy didn't do the Saudi customs in the airport, but I want to take them. I said, hey, that's your own discretion. I didn't know exactly what it was. He took the pill and it was like, he's gone. Psychedelic. Start seeing things, hearing things. The room is spinning, the room is moving. I said, you okay, Akhi? He's like, yeah, I'm all right. Now I can study for this final exam I have tomorrow on Hadith. The brother had one of the highest GPAs in the College of Hadith. But when he took the pill and after he took the pill, he was in space, no doubt about it. So I would say don't take Adderalls or any type of enhancing pills. If you want something that's going to enhance your sharpness or the sharpness of your memory, your concentration, drink green tea. If you want, drink green tea mixed with white tea. Very good, inshallah. Bismillah ta'ala. Ginseng root. Things like this. That's what I would advise. Natural things that don't make the room spin. That don't make you say, yes, I can't feel my face, as they say, right? You have to be very careful. Anytime you can't feel your face, something's wrong. That's mine. I see here with regards to these pills, drinks, even caffeine. All right? And caffeine isn't the same. People that go extreme. Caffeine is like drugs. It's like cocaine. It should be impermissible. White sugar. No, I've never seen no one rob somebody, steal somebody, rape somebody because of sugar. With pills and alcohol, it's like night and day. It's not the same. It's not the same. However, the general concept of things that make you jumpy, give you energy, but then slam you down. They take you up and then they drop you down really harsh, really fast. Or and you're really cold when you fall. It's hot and cold. You should avoid those things. Whether it's haram or not, because it isn't good for you. And it's unnatural. When you take ginseng, inshallah ta'ala, it's a natural energy burst. So what? It's a natural energy burst. Everybody got this? The origin of modern drugs and modern narcotics. We read the history of drugs, which is a very interesting fact that most rules regarding drugs and alcohol are based off of racism, okay, and racial superiority and inferiority. The drug became banned when a certain race started taking the drug or drinking it. But before that, it was okay and it was accepted. Read the history of cocaine. Read the history of opium and heroin. Read the history of these things in America and Europe. What's important is these drugs, especially cocaine, they were natural drugs that those indigenous people took for stamina, for energy. They lived in extremely high altitude climates. And when they were forced and enslaved to take the gold and take the ivory or whatever natural resource and bring it back to the Christian church in Spain or Portugal or wherever they were, they had to take something that would give them more energy and allow them to have a bit more endurance under those harsh conditions. So the imperialists or the conquerors, they noticed the power of those people, chewing those things, smoking those things, eating those things, let alone the high priest, in which drugs and intoxication was a means of spirituality, and a person leaving the normal realm to the next realm of spirituality with regards to sacrifice and worship, etc. Then these drugs were synthesized. They were chemicalized. They were turned into something else. And that's produced what it produced today, what we see, of extreme habit-forming power, of addiction, of losing every ounce of morality and value that you have as a human being just for one puff, one smoke, one needle in your arm. But the origin of these drugs weren't like this. They weren't what? They were natural. We don't want to get into the topic of marijuana. That's a long discussion with regards to marijuana and Christianity, how it became the devil's weed in the Western countries. So what's important is that there are things that you can take, that you can eat, that are natural. They don't give you that jumpy feeling, that jittery type of feeling which you're spinning and floating. They give you natural energy, natural stamina, natural sharpness and clarity of the mind. So that's my personal opinion. There's no need to take an Adderall or anything else. There's no need to. Bidinai ta'ala. If you use the natural things that Allah Azza wa Jalla has created. And the general rule, not specifically, Khalid, but the general rule is that something that's made in a laboratory and that's synthesized and put together and crystallized in a laboratory is going to be bad for you. That's the general rule. And the same applies to sweeteners. White sugar is not like raw honey. It's not like other things. Everybody understand this? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Questioner says, Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling for prayer when traveling for months? And when you won't stay more than a week in one place? And how to handle prayers during long and short flights?
As far as when a person is traveling, how long are you allowed to shorten your prayers or combine your prayers? And what about if you have the intention or if you know you're going to be more than a week or less than a week on the plane, etc.? The layman Muslim should avoid complication. Avoid complication. And avoid technicalities unless it is an issue in which you've studied, you've learned, and been trained in properly. But if that isn't the case, then you should always go with the safest view. Let alone the concept of majority of the ulama. Not all of the time, but if you don't know, if you have no clue, You can't go wrong with what? With that. Bi-idhnillah, in general. Everybody understand this? Okay, numbers don't mean everything, but they are important in Islam. They are what? They are important. If numbers weren't important, then it wouldn't have been mandatory to make hijrah to Medina. It wouldn't have been mandatory for everyone who had the ability to make hijrah to go and make hijrah. In other words, everyone who can go and increase the number of the Muslims in Medina should do that. Everybody understand that? So, this is very important for us to understand this. Numbers don't mean everything, but they mean what? Something. Especially for someone who's lost. I don't have a clue. I never studied it. I never knew about it. Everybody understand that there's safety in these things. What the majority says, and also what is the safest view. That which is the most precautious view. These ulama say, if you do not recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you have no salah. And these ulama say, it is mandatory to keep silent when the Quran is recited. Which is the strongest of the two? That's not necessarily the most important. What's important is these ulama say, I have no salah unless I recite the Fatiha. And these ulama say, I'm doing something wrong if I recite the Fatiha behind the Imam. There's a word of a difference. There's a what? A word of a difference. Everybody got this? It's a word of a difference. So therefore, when you go to a place with the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have the intention of staying there for at least 4 days or more, you have the intention, or you know that you're going to be there for at least a week, 7 days, you should stop shortening, stop combining your prayers the first day that you get there. The first day that you get there. As soon as you get to the hotel, you're now considered muqim. Everybody understand this? As far as if you go to the hotel, you don't know how long it's going to take. I booked my hotel for 2 days. I may get it done tomorrow. It may take 5 more days. I don't know. That's a different story. Then you have the ability of shortening and combining your prayers for, you say what? No longer than 19 days. No longer than 19 days. After the 19th day, even though you're unsure about how long it's going to take, stop shortening the salah, stop combining the salah. These two things are the safest things to do for the layman Muslim. Not necessarily the qawl al-rajih. Not necessarily the strongest view, but the what? The safest view. Everybody got this? As far as when you're on a plane, you haven't landed anywhere yet. You haven't booked a hotel. You don't know where you're going. You're actually you're on the dub. You're on the road. You're in the seer. Jadda bihi sayr, the hadith says. When the Prophet was moving, traveling. So when you're traveling, you have the option of, we say here, once again, you have the option of what? Combining the salah, and you should shorten the salah. Everybody got this? When you're on the plane, or on the train, or on the bus, or when you stop on the road. Once you get at your destination, that's a what? Different story. Everybody got this? We have 3 different things now. We have the road. Stopping on the road, and then reaching the destination, and then becoming a resident. They aren't the same. So that's the safest thing for the layman Muslim to do. As far as what's the most correct view, what did some of the Salaf al-Salih do, how long they made Jam' al-Qasr for battles for years, it's a long discussion that's found in the books of fiqh. That's the easiest, safest thing to do bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're on the plane, shorten the salah, combine the salah. When you're on the train, shorten the salah, combine the salah. When you stop at the rest stop, shorten the salah, combine the salah. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Questioner, Assalamu alaikum, initials MC from New Jersey. If someone prays Isha in the last third of the night, is it considered late?
Bismillah. It's considered late, but that's not the most important issue here. The most important issue is it considered to be accepted or not. With regards to the difference of view regarding when is the latest one may offer Salat al-Isha. Is it Nusf al-Layl, half of the night, or is it before the rising of the true Fajr? Once again, the Muslim should avoid the khilaf and make sure that he or she makes the Salah before the middle of the night. Starting from Salat al-Maghrib, the time in which the sun sets, until the time in which Salat al-Fajr comes in. Everybody understand this? The dawn or the daybreak. Everybody got this? Once this comes, you split that in half. And that's how you further divide the night into sections. Halves, thirds, and pay attention to the wordings now. We have Athuluthul Akhir, the last third of the night. In other words, there are how many thirds? 3. And this is the last third. Everybody understand this? Not necessarily the third of the night. Everybody understand this? An-nusf al-akhir, the last half. There's different basic equations here. So what's important is that you should not delay Salat al-Isha past midnight. So if Salat al-Maghrib comes in mathalan 4:57, for example, if that's the adhan, then you're going to calculate 4:57 to what? When the adhan for Salat al-Fajr is. Then you're going to cut that in half. That is the point in which you should not make Salat al-Isha unless it is a means of necessity. Unless it is a means of what? Ultimate necessity. Everybody understand? It's the general rules that is recommended to delay Salat al-Isha. As Isha radiallahu ta'ala narrated, that the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّهُ لَوَقْتُهَا لَوْلَا أَنْ أَشُقْ. He says, this is the proper time for Isha, but I fear there's going to be hardship. He delayed it. But congregation is a different issue. But if a sister is not praying in congregation, she can make Salat al-Isha whenever she feels, as long as she doesn't go past the middle of the night unless she has an excuse. And there are other ulama who hold the view that it doesn't go out until when? Fajr time, but that's not the safest, most precautious view to take. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Question from the brothers here? Sheikh Khan. Creating a system. Practicalities and creating a system for prayer at night. First and foremost is a person must be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. You have several responsibilities. Work, study, family, sleep, preservation of your health. All of these things have to be taken into consideration. Now, I'm not saying that because things are different from our time, our location, our lifestyle, and that of the Prophet ﷺ, that the rules just go out the window. I'm not saying that. No, of course not. However, what I am saying is that there are certain things that have to be taken into consideration. The simplicity of life of the Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba is not like our lives. Everybody understand this? The simplicity of life is not like of their lives is not like ours. Time, for example. The Muslims had time. The people in the past, they had general calculation of time, but not like the time that we have. Everybody understand this? Seconds, minutes, hours, this, that. Everybody understand this? Just the concept of looking for the moon is totally different than a calendar. Everybody clear on this? The simplicity, it's a new moon or it's not. We have an exact laid out calendar. Work, vacation, holiday, so on and so forth. So their lives were relatively simple. The foods that they ate, the things that they drank, it's easy, simple. There was no such thing as organic food. There was no organic restaurant. There was no organic supermarket because everything was organic. They went out, any meat that the people ate, it was hunted. It was slaughtered. It was fresh. There was nothing in the refrigerator for days. Everybody understand this? The water that they consumed was pure, clean water. And the list goes on. Our lives are a bit different. So you have to work for 8 hours out the day, 10 hours out the day. You can't go into work tired, falling asleep. Especially if you deal with heavy equipment. Dangerous type of job. You have to be what? Well rested when you're out there on that plane. When you're doing things, when you're moving things, you're constructing heavy machinery. You have to be what? Well rested. You have to be what? Well fed. You work outside, you do construction. A person is a police officer outside. He has to eat well to stay warm. It's not as simple, I'm going to just eat a third this and a third that and a third that. You have to be mindful of this. Everybody understand this? So therefore, you have to fit into your schedule what is most important. Extra hour of sleep or extra prayer. An extra meal or a simple basic meal that will give me the necessary protein. It sticks to my ribs and allows me to have more time to do something else. So there are some things which have to be trimmed. Whether it's football, ESPN, Sports Center, extra meat, extra juice, extra this, things have to be what? Trimmed. And you take those trimmings and you add them in the pile of the time that you want more of or for. Everybody understand this? I don't have that much time to study. You can minimize other things that you do. Everybody understand this? Instead of going here to eat, which is a 20-minute drive, eat something simple and basic. That's 20 minutes now you have that you can take the trimming and add it to this pile. Everybody got this? So these are things, in my honest opinion, or my humble opinion, is the first step, is to be honest with yourself and your schedule. You're not going to be able to do what he does. You're not going to be able to do what this person does. You may do better, you may do worse, but his life is a bit different. So you have to be honest with your schedule. Secondly, you have to manage your time. You have to be able to trim your time, cut down on unnecessary things to have more money or more time for what? Things that you want. Whether it's a need or whether it's a what? A want. Everybody got this? So you can't be a zombie at work. You have to study, but at the same time you have to pray at night. You have to have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're going to have to figure out what bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala you have the ability to do. Another practicality is the concept of taking a nap in the daytime, or what we call a power nap. And there are many ahadith in which the Prophet and the Sahaba took these types of naps in the daytime. Not very long naps, but naps in which they would refresh themselves. They would get back the energy. They wouldn't be walking around tired and exhausted, but they didn't sleep too much unnecessarily. And we all know the harms of extra sleep or too little sleep. It's very dangerous upon the body, and it can break you down and take a longer effect upon you with regards to your health. May Allah help us all. Everybody understand this? So therefore, taking a nap in the daytime, a responsible nap, 20 minutes, 30 minutes can allow you to stay up an extra hour. Everybody understand this? Also, another very important point is sleeping after Salat al-Isha. As the Prophet ﷺ used to dislike to the people to stay up after Isha and to speak after Isha. To sleep before Isha and to speak after Salat al-Isha. He disliked these things. Even though it's permissible to stay up after Isha with regards to classes, helping out the Muslims, a man spending time with his wife, as the hadith states. However, the concept of we get used to staying up all night, every night, night owls, every single night, every single day, and then we can't get up for Fajr, let alone prayer at night. So sometimes it's best to sleep right after Isha, and then you can get up an hour later, 2 hours later, 3 hours later, depending on what time you're in to pray the night prayer, to go back to sleep, get some more recreation of your energy, and wake up on time for Salat al-Fajr and do the necessary things that you have to do in the daytime. Then comes the time to take the nap again. Recharge your battery, you're back up, Maghrib, Isha, study, go back to sleep. These are some of the practicalities that I would advise with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. The initials and the location. Next question.
Views on Tabligh Jamaat.
Next question, inshallah. There's a format, inshallah, with regards to the online disciples. Please put your initials and your location, inshallah ta'ala. Allah bless you.
MC from New Jersey. What is best for a woman to take?
We need the city as well. Or attire, the state, attire. Labats, mashi.
What is best for a woman to take the excuse for not fasting while nursing her baby or trying to fast and nurse? And what if she has a tough time keeping up her supply, so a lack of calories would probably result in a lower supply? And this is for the whole 2 years.
Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu narrated that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam says, Inna Allah yuhibbu an tu'ta rukhsuh. Aw kama qala alayhi salatu wasalam. He says that Allah loves for the concessions and the allowances that He has made to be performed. One version of this hadith says, Kama yakrahu an tu'ta ma'asi. Just as He hates for His disobedience to be made and practiced. Allah hates for people to disobey Him, and Allah also loves for people to take the things that He has allowed them to take. It states in another authentic hadith, Sadaqatun tasaddaqa Allah biha alaykum, faqbalu sadaqatah. It's a charity that Allah has given you. So take the charity. So the general rule is that when Allah and or His Messenger give us a rukhsa, make something that is once haram, or was once mandatory, they make it only, they say that it's permissible to do now. Or you don't have to do that mandatory act. Then the slave should do what? He should take it, because it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's unbefitting of a slave to reject his master's gift. It's unbefitting of a servant to reject the kind gesture of his what? Of his master. It just doesn't make sense. And we are slaves and Allah is our master subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let alone, only Allah truly knows the wisdoms that are included in these allowances. Allah knows, as He says in the Quran, وَعَلِمَ أَنَّ فِيكُمْ ضَعْفًا. Allah knows that among you is what? Weakness. He said this to the Sahaba. He gave them permission. He allowed them a certain time when to fight, when not to fight. How many people, the number, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions about the number of the Sahaba versus the number of the mushrikeen. Everybody understand this? And Allah Azza wa Jal, He has allowed you to fight, not to fight, this number, that number, in Surah Al-Anfal, the 8th chapter, regarding the number of the combatants. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He knows that in man and in the Muslims is what? There's a weakness. Everybody understand this? The nature of man is through weakness. Everybody clear on this? Everything about the nature of the creation of man is weak. The original matter that man was made from is what? Weak. The concept of the man being with the woman, intimacy, ejaculation, that's a means of what? Weakness and loss of control. Everybody understand this? So the nature of man is weak. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He knew this and He knows this. That's why He made certain rules for certain times, certain places, certain instances and scenarios. So it only makes sense to take the things that Allah Azza wa Jalla has allowed us to take. If you do not have to fast, if you do not have to do the things that other people have to do because of pregnancy, because of breastfeeding, that is what you should do. And you shouldn't put yourself through a hardship and a difficulty and fasting and making the salah, standing up when you don't have the ability to do so. Your most important thing right now is your child. His nutrition, her nutrition, their well-being, their upbringing. Allah Azza wa Jalla is all forgiving, most merciful. If your child grows up and their growth is stunted, they are not the most forgiving and the most merciful. Everybody understand this? It's a golden rule in Islam. حقوق الله مبنية على المسامحة. Allah's rights are based off of forgiveness. Allah overlooking you. Everybody understanding this? Allah pardoning you. They're based off of this. And the rights of the human beings, the law slaves, are not based off musamaha. It's based off of, I want my money. I want my property. I want my things. I'm not forgiving you. Everybody understand this? So it's a very important concept to understand. Give your child the rights that your child has over you with regards to suckling, with regards to breastfeeding, and any other thing. If you're when you have the ability to fast, fast. If 2 years go by, alhamdulillah, you make up to 2 years. Depending on the view, that's a discussion in itself. We've spoken on before about the murdi', the hamid, do you have to feed, do you have to fast, etc. What's important is that these things, there's always time for that. But your child's nutrition, it's not always time for. It's a small window. If you lose that window, khalas. Wallahu alam. Fadal.
If someone's scheduled permits them to fast on Friday, should he then combine it with a Thursday or a Saturday, or is it because his schedule allows him some free time to fast? Is he excused from fasting it with an extra day?
The people of knowledge, they say fasting on the day of Jum'ah by itself is disliked. It says disliked. And the reason why it's disliked is for a person not to think and not to feel that there's a special act of ibadah for Jum'ah. Yani bid'ah. This is fasting just for Jum'ah. Prayer just for Jum'ah. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he forbade the fasting of his day and standing in prayer during his night. The Prophet he said, Sumi yawman qablahu or yawman ba'dahu. Fast the day before or day after, in the authentic hadith in the Sahih. So fasting before or after is a means of preventing someone of excluding, takhsis, specializing or specifying the day of Jum'ah with ibadah that Allah and His Messenger did not legislate. So therefore, if you fast the day on Jum'ah because your schedule allows your work schedule, then obviously in the a'malu bin-niyyah, these are based on intentions. I'm not fasting Jum'ah just because it's Jum'ah, but I'm only fasting it because it's my work schedule. So your intentions are most important. However, you should stick to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and do a day before or a day what? After. If you can't, because of the nature of your work, then I would say find another type of recommended act of ibadah that you can do on Jum'ah. And there's nothing like sticking to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He said fast the day before or day afterwards. Everybody understand this? And he didn't specify with regards to this and with regards to that. Wallahu alam.
Would leaving off the fasting be considered an act of ibadah in itself?
Leaving off the fasting?
Leaving it off because you don't want to...
You're only leaving it off because of the hadith, of course. You're trying to be obedient to the Prophet ﷺ. And what the ulama say is not necessarily what the Prophet ﷺ said. Everybody understand this? He said do a day before or a day afterwards. But the hadith that says takhsis, or the hadith that tells about an yukhas, for a specific intention to be made, and that's not your intention. So from one aspect, I'm not fasting on Friday because I don't want to go against the Prophet ﷺ. But at the same time, innamal a'malu bin-niyyah. These are based off of intentions. I'm only fasting this day not because it's special or virtual, but because of my schedule. So that's what's most important. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Assalamu alaikum. AK from Australia. Views on Tabligh Jamaat.
Tayyip, views on Tabligh Jamaat. My view on Tabligh Jamaat is no different than any view or any other Dawah group. Any other modern Dawah group of 2017. There are Dawah groups, they have different names, different leaders, different methodologies, different ideologies. And in my humble opinion, all of the Dawah groups are the same. They have things with them that's from Islam, and they have things with them that's not from Islam. They have points, they have practices, they have different points of their constitution that is pure sunnah. And there are many other things of practices, stances, positions that are against the sunnah. Everybody understand this? Jama'at Tabligh and what? Other Dawah groups. And there's a difference between Islam, between Dawah, between the Quran, the Sunnah, and a Jama'at Da'wiyah, Firqa Da'wiyah, a group, a clique, a posse of people who most, and I'm not saying this specifically about Jama'at Tabligh, but other people who monopolize Islam. They monopolize Dawah. They monopolize the Sunnah. Our call is the call of Islam. Our call is the call of the Salaf al-Salih. This is the tariqah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What we say, our positions, our scholars, our masters, our people, our followers, and everything else is what? Dalal. Is misguidance. This is a problem, obviously, because Allah Azza wa Jal, He told us not to split up, not to separate ourselves, not to jump into schisms. And when we do this, Allah told us that you will lose what? You will lose strength. وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Your wind will go away. The Muslims are divided, they're separated, everyone has a taste, a color, a banner, a flag, and then we're split up. And our enemies come and just take a handful of what they want to take a handful of Muslims. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ. So this concept of splitting up into كُلُّ حِزْمٍ مِّمَّا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ, rejoicing in what they have, that's a problem, whether it's Jama'at Tabligh or any other Jama'ah group. So therefore, what is important is your da'wah to be based off of Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, فِيمَا صَحَ عَنْهُ وَثَبَتَ, authentically, and the ijma' of the people of knowledge. Whether it is 40 days, 4 months, 4 days, calling people innovators, whatever point, it has to be based off of those divine sources. This group says Islam is jihad. Most important thing in Islam is jihad. Is jihad from Islam? Is jihad important? That's not what they're saying. They're saying Islam is what? Jihad. This group says Islam is staying away from Ahlul Bid'ah. That's the deen. Staying away from Ahlul Bid'ah, innovations, is that not from the deen? That's not what they say. That is the main purpose of what? Their da'wah. Ahlul Bid'ah. Don't be with Ahlul Bid'ah. You be with the innovators. You're an innovator. Another group comes and it says Islam is brotherhood. Be together, everyone stick together, fraternity of brothers, brothers, brothers. Is brotherhood from Islam? Not a doubt. La shak. It's in the Quran and the Sunnah. But that's not the only thing in Islam. Another group, they come and they say Islam is politics. Islam is the Khilafah. Islam is the Khalifa. Islam is the Islamic State. Is that from the deen? There is no doubt about that. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. Allah said to the angels, I'm going to make a Khalifa on earth. Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah explained in his tafsir, he says, هذه الآية تدل على وجوب نصب الخليفة. That is mandatory for there to be a Khalifa. And it's mandatory for there to be a Hakim and a Qadi who's just, who will give the people their necessary rights when the people do their natural thing they're going to do. And that is to fight and to argue. Naturally going to fight and argue. So someone has to be strong, physically, spiritually, mentally, to yafsil wa yahkum, to rule and to judge among the people and give them their rights. But that's not the only part of Islam. Then another group and it says Islam is finance and economics, money, interest, banks, debts, this and that. That's Islam. And then another group comes and they say Islam is spirituality. Islam is the heart, softness of the heart, tenderness of the heart, a zuhd fi dunya, staying away from the worldly life. Is this from the deen? There's no doubt. وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ. Allah says make an example of them. Make an example for them. مَثَلُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. The similarity of the worldly life. The similarity of the dunya. There's no doubt about that. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ. The hereafter is what? Is better. There's no doubt about that, but that's not the only thing from the deen. So every group has one main point that they stick to, and they remove themselves from the other groups. And they claim to have the haqq, and no one else has the haqq. So what happens, except for this big, gigantic, gaping hole in the center? And that's 2017. And it's been like this for many years, unfortunately. So that's my nasiha to Jama'at Tabligh, or any other Jama'ah, and that's my review on Jama'at Tabligh, and I quote, any other Jama'ah, except for the Jama'ah that makes its constitution, its main practice, Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, Qala Ahlul Ilm, Fima Ajma'u alayh. That which they agree upon, that which they differ on, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِن كُنتُمْ. Take it back to Allah and His Messenger. If it's an issue of ijtihad, let's see who's right, who's closest. There's an etiquette, there's an adab. And we can never ever forget, Allah says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Cooperate upon righteousness and piety. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not cooperate upon sin and transgression. So if this Muslim brother or this Muslim group asks me to do something that's from the deen, based off of Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, we agree upon, my initially is supposed to do what? Come together with them. The moment I say do something that's against birr and taqwa, I'm supposed to do what? Disassociate myself from that statement. And disassociate myself from that person according to how bad the statement was. But it does not necessarily mean to do what? Go and remove yourself from them personally. What the people do today, foolishly. That's not the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Help each other upon birr and taqwa. Don't help each other upon what? Sin and transgression. So this is a big problem, unfortunately. My nasiha to the Dawah groups today is to make their constitution those three things. Everybody understand this? Those three things. وبهذه الأصول الثلاثة, the Shaykh sometimes said these three principles. Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they use to judge. They use to grade, to sift, to filter through what the people say and what the people do are religious practice. Everybody understand this? So therefore, when you quote a hadith, the hadith should be authentic. When you wish to go give dawah, which is a beautiful thing, ادعو إلى سبيل ربك قل هذه سبيلي ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. This is from the most beautiful things, dawah. But your dawah has to be based off of Allah, His Rasul, and what the Muslims agreed upon. And if the Muslims agreed upon that you should go out for 40 days, go out for 40 days. If they didn't agree upon that, if it's not Kitab and the Sunnah, then you have to do what? Avoid it. If the Kitab and the Sunnah clearly prove the meaning of Tawheed, the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and it doesn't just mean taking the dunya out of someone's heart, then you cannot say that. You cannot believe that. That's from the meanings, perhaps, of divorcing the worldly life. The heart being purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you can't say that's the meaning of La ilaha illallah. And the list goes on of any fiqh issue, any dawah issue, any aqeedah issue. Kitab, Sunnah, Ijma'. So that's my position and my view on Jama'at Tabligh and any other Jama'at group. They have their pros and they have their what? Have their cons. This group here, they have the good things with them and they have what? Bad things with them. Wal-iyadhu billah, unfortunately. Allah knows best.
Toronto. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Ayatullah. Some ulama have said wearing a bun is impermissible because it outlines your hair, but some hair textures require you to contain it in a bun. Should they still leave their hair down, and can the hair be in a bun atop the head if it's not in front of non-mahram men?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah. Allah bless you all the disciples and disciples in Canada. We say that this is a very commonly asked question based off the hadith of Abi Hurairah collected in the Sahih, in which the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam said, Sinfani min ahli nari lam arahuma. He says there are two types of people who will be punished in the fire that I haven't seen. I didn't see them yet. And he mentioned qawmun ma'ahum. He says there are some people, aswatum ka'adhnab al-baqar yadribuna biha nas. He says the first type of people are those who beat men and whip men like savages. Huh, Sharif? Savages. They beat them with the tails of cows, leather whips, in an inhumane way. And then he said, when he sat one, kasiyatun, ariyatun, ma'ilatun mumilat. He says, and there are women who will be clothed but naked. They will be astray and they will lead others astray. The Prophet ﷺ, he then says, ru'usuhunna ka'asminat. He says their heads will be like the humps of camels, or the lumps or the humps of Bactrian camels. And then the Prophet ﷺ went on to say that they will not smell the fragrance of Jannah. وَإِنَّ رِيحَهَا, he says, and a person get the fragrance of Jannah min masirat kada wa kada, from such a long, far distance. So the hadith teaches us that these women have the following attributes. Number one, they're wearing something, but they're naked at the same time. Number two, they have left the straight path. Then they also take others from the straight path. And then their heads have a specific form. And that form is that it's something on top of the heads like that of a camel, a hump, a bun, a lump, something on the top of their heads. And also that they will not smell the fragrance of what? Paradise. They will not enter paradise. They will not experience the beautiful smell of paradise, the aroma of paradise. So therefore, does this hadith prove that it's haram for a sister to have a ponytail or a bun or a turban or any type of hairstyle or accessory on top of her head? We say yes and no. Yes and no. For one aspect, the Prophet clearly says this is what their heads will look like. And whenever he tells us about these types of people, what they do, their attributes, then it's generally something negative and something that's looked down upon. But from the no aspect, just because that's what their heads look like does not mean that it's haram to have that type of hairstyle. As it states in the authentic hadith, simahum al-halq. He said about the Khawarij, simahum al-halq. Shaving the head is their sign. So does it mean that men can't shave their heads? Doesn't necessarily mean that. The Prophet said in another hadith, man kana lahu sha'run falyukrimhu. He who has hair, he should honor it. He should honor the hair. But it doesn't mean that it's mandatory to keep your hair and to grow your hair and to honor your hair. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So therefore, just because they have this attribute does not necessarily mean that it is absolutely haram for a sister to have some type of hair on her head. Especially if the sister is not kasiyat or kasiyat ariyah. She's clothed. She's not ma'ila mumila. She's not sending other people astray. Whether it's the hair texture, the hairstyle, especially in front of her mahrams, not in front of other men, in which she shows how much hair she has, or how little hair she has, or the style of her hair. And it's a means of attraction. It's a means of catching the man's attention. Oh, I like the hairstyle, how she has a bun. It's nice, it's this and that. So it does not necessarily mean that. Everybody understand this? An-Nawawi rahimahullah explains hadith in al-Minhaj, and he says that some of the ulama say, first and foremost, that the hadith is this yadul al-karaha, that it is disliked to do it, and not necessarily haram, because it isn't something that yuqsad bi-dhatihi. It isn't something that's necessarily an act in itself that's bad, but it was mentioned as a side description of those women. Let alone the concept of deception, showing someone that your hair is longer or your hair is shorter, your hair is like this and it's not like that. Let alone the concept of style and fashion. Style and fashion, such as high heel shoes. The hadith tells us that there was a woman from Bani Israel who had wooden shoes, wooden clogs. Yeah, wooden clogs, huh? You clip the heels. Everybody understand this? Wooden clogs to make a woman what? Very tall. The woman, she's 5 feet. She wears the clogs, she becomes 5'4", 5'5". She's 5'7". She wears the heels, she becomes what? Jeremy?
5'8".
That's it? Just 1 inch on the heels? 6'1". Everybody understand this? In which a woman feels that it's better to be taller. It's more this and it's more that to be what? To be tall. Everybody understand this? In other words, it's a means of deception. In other words, it's a mean of what? Tabarruj. She's wearing these wooden clogs, these wooden shoes, these stiletto heels in front of other people. To be seen, to be heard, click, clack, click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And also to affect the manner of her walking. And everybody knows what happens when a woman wears what? High heel shoes. It's well known. We don't have to mention in class. How a woman walks, goes up and down with high heel shoes on. Everybody understand this? So does it mean it's haram to wear high shoes in the house for your husband? Doesn't necessarily mean that. While in public, with these people around, in the manner of deception, of trickery, then it's a what? Perhaps it could be a what? A different story. Perhaps it could be a what? A different story. This is a very important Islamic principle with regards to this hadith and many other hadiths. it does not necessarily mean that it is absolutely what? Haram. Doesn't mean that to shave the head or to wear something on top of your head, to have a ponytail. Doesn't mean that. Everybody understand this? So therefore, if a sister's in public, I wouldn't advise her to do that. If she was in the house, she was doing her hair or washing clothes or washing the dishes, and she put her hair into a ponytail or into a wrap, into a bun, I could not say that it's haram, and it's absolutely haram to do that. If you're in doubt, then stay away from it and avoid it. But it does not necessarily mean that that's the proper understanding of what? That hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Read from beautification.
Inshallah, Sharif. تفضل شيخ نوح.
ما حكم قص الشعر للمرأة؟
طيب قص الشعر هذا جائز ليس فيه شيء لأسباب كثيرة. أولا ليس عندنا فيما أعلم وعلمي قليل واطلاعي محدود طبعا، لكن حسب ما وقفت عليه لم أقف على حديث نبوي صحيح يمنع المرأة من قص شعرها. حلق الشعر هذا شيء، قص فالظاهر أن هذا شيء مما يعود ويرجع إلى العادة والعرف. بل أمهات المؤمنين أزواج النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام لما توفي ولاحق بالرفيق الأعلى عليه الصلاة والسلام جاء في الحديث أنهن قصروا من شعر رؤوسهن. فيستبعد يعني أن يكون أزواج النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام أمهات المؤمنين يخفى عليهن مثل هذا النهي، وهن في بيوتات النبوة وتتلى عليهم آيات الله والحكمة. هذا يبعد جدا، يحصل ويصير من واحدة باجتهادها ورأيها ممكن وارد، لكن واحد اثنين هذا مما هو ايش فيه شيء من البعد. فقضية يعني إطالة المرأة لشعر رأسها هذا يعني يقول بعض العلماء كلما طال شعر الرأس بالنسبة للمرأة ازداد جمالها وإلى آخره. هذا قد يقال، لكن هناك أعراف، هناك عوائد، هناك بلدان، ليس على درجة واحدة. المهم أن يكون المرأة تبتعد عن التشبه بالكفار الكافرات والفاسقات. وفي 2017 طبعا هناك موضة، هناك فاشن، وهناك صعب. يعني ما هو الضابط العلمي الواضح بين ما يجوز من الدنيا والتشبه بالكفار؟ وكل هذا الفاشن جاء من قبل من؟ كفار والغرب. عرفت كيف؟ فالقول الراجح الصحيح أن المرأة لو قصت شعر رأسها بدون نية التشبه بالكافرات والفاسقات، وكذلك مثلا بإذن الزوج وبرضاه، فإنه لا بأس بذلك إن شاء الله تعالى. ومن الفقهاء من يمنع من ذلك، لكن القول الراجح الصحيح الذي يظهر لي أنا والله أعلم هو الذي قلت لك بهذه الضوابط. البعد عن التشبه بالفاسقات وبنية يعني مشابهتهن، وكذلك يكون بإذن الزوج ورضا الزوج. أما أن الزوج لا يبالي ما يمنع عادي، لكنه أن الزوج مثلا كان شغوف بطول الشعر ويحب ذلك ويمنع ويسخط عليها تستأذن، والله أعلم.
ما ذكرت شيء من أزواج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قصر شعرهم، ما السبب؟
هو شوف هو يعني يكون قضية الإحداد ليس يعني حديث صحيح يدلنا على أن من آداب الإحداد وأحكامه قص الشعر. جاء عدم الاكتحال، عدم الزينة، لبس الحلي، الخروج من البيت وإلى آخره، هذا كله جاء في السنة. أما قضية طول الشعر قصر الشعر ليس عندنا، فنقول كأنه أو لعله يعني من شدة ابتعادهن عن الزينة ونظرا إلى عظم حق النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام، لا شك ولا ريب في ذلك. لعل هذا، أو قد نقول مثلا أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام ممكن يحب طول شعر الرأس لما توفي عليه الصلاة والسلام ولاحق بالرفيق الأعلى، قد يكون ليس هناك داعي. ومعلوم أن المرأة أحيانا أو نقول كثيرا ما تتعذب بطول الشعر، يحتاج غسل، يحتاج عناية، يحتاج ادهان، يحتاج. فلهذا أحيانا يكون التخفيف أن المرأة تقص الشعر، تتخفف وهي تنام، ويكون تتعذب بالشعر أحيانا، خاصة إذا طال. ولا شك أن الشعر يختلف، هناك يعني يكون شعر هكذا يختلف، يحتاج تصريح، يحتاج عناية فائقة لهذا الشعر. فهذا لعله هو السبب، لعل هذا هو السبب، والعلم عند الله تعالى. طيب تفضل طالب.
A Muslim is jealous of another Muslim. The Muslim knows that it's wrong for them to be jealous, but they can't get it out of them. What do they do?
The jealous Muslim. The jealous Muslim knows that he can't get it out of him or her, then at least remove himself from the one whom he or she envies. Get far from them. Don't mix with them. Protect them from the evil that they can't fight. Or it may take time. Something happened, something was said, something was done, which really is really hard to let go of the envy and the jealousy or the malice, the venom. Okay, tight. You need time to work on yourself. That's no problem. But you have to do what? Aywa. Stay away from the person and don't speak upon it. What's in your heart is one thing. Speaking on it is a different story. Physically harming that Muslim or intending to harm them is a different story. As the Prophet has told us, that Allah forgives his slaves. He forgives the followers of Muhammad. ما حدثت به, that which the nafs says and talks. ما لم تعمل به أو تتكلم أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. As long as they don't speak, and as long as they don't what? Act. So that's what they should do. And they have to make the constant jihad against that hasad and against that venom and against that envy. But if it takes some time, or that's my weakness, that's my fitna, I just can't get rid of it, I can't get over it, then at least refrain from talking, refrain from acting, and remove yourself therefrom. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Questioner says, Assalamu alaikum, initials AC from England, UK. A person began their salah with the intention of praying nafila. Can one change the intention to praying fard salah and vice versa? Fard to nafil.
Making the nafil to fard, no, do not do that. Do not do that. The fard prayer should be done with the intention of fard from the beginning. Rather, the people of knowledge, they say that the Muslim must specify the intention of the specific prayer of dhuhr and of asr of the fard, let alone nafil or nafila. Everybody understand this? As far as the opposite, perhaps somebody may make salat al-dhuhr and then they remember, I already made salat al-dhuhr. I don't have to make this up. Or somebody may do something, they found out that the Muslims combined the salat method and they did this salat already method. And for example, and a person, instead of breaking the prayer, getting out of the prayer, they make what? The intention of nafil. Perhaps. You say la'allahu, perhaps. As far as the opposite, no. Wallahu alam. Initials in the country. Next question. تفضل.
مثلا لو وصلت للجماعة متأخرا ولحقت بالإمام في آخر ركعة، ركعة الرابعة، هو ركعة أول لي، فلما ينتهي الإمام هل أبدأ بترتيب جديد أم أكمل بترتيب الواحدة؟
يكون البناء على ما أدركته. أنت تبني صلاتك على ما قد أدركته.
يعني أصلي ركعة
أو إذا كان مغرب أنت الآن ستتكلم تكمل إيش؟ تكمل ركعتين لأنك أدركت ركعة واحدة. الإصرار على الإجرار هذه مسائل أخرى.
لا أنا سؤالي هل أكمل بالترتيب؟ يعني مثلا صليت مع الإمام ركعة واحدة.
طيب.
هل لما أقوم أصلي ركعتين ثم أجلس للتشهد أم أصلي ركعة ثم أجلس للتشهد؟
لا، الترتيب على حسب الإدراك. مثلا لو أنت مثلا دخلت وهم في التشهد وأنت ليس عليك تشهد، الركعة الأولى في حقك أنت، لكن سوف تجلس وتنتظر الإمام وتوافق الإمام في الأعمال الظاهرة. والعكس عكس، أنت صليت ركعة واحدة أو هو الركعة الثانية عندك والثالثة عندهم وهم في صلاة العشاء مثلا، ففي الركعة الثالثة هم قاموا وفي حقك أنت الركعة إيش؟ ثانية. عليك أن تقوم وتصلي مع الإمام. لما يصلي مع الإمام ينتهي من صلاته أنت تعتبر يعني منفصل عنه تماما، لكن على ما جاء في الحديث وما أدركتم، فأنت الآن ستكمل وتتم على حسب ما أدركت وعلى نفس الترتيب وعلى نفس البناء، وليس يكون يعني الأمر أنك يعني تصلي صلاة جديدة وتبني لا بناء جديد، لا لا لا، على حسب من بنى من صلاتك، الركعة الأولى، الثانية، الإصرار، الجهر، التشهد، نفس الأحكام. فإن هذه الأمور تسقط عنك بسبب إذن حق المتابعة. هذه الآن الحق هنا الحقوق تزاحمت. أنت الآن تأتم بالإمام ولا صلوا كما رأيتموني أصلي في ركعتهم الثالثة وركعتك الثانية. يكون حق الإمام وحق المتابعة هنا الآن أكد من حقك أنت، لكن لما يسلم وينتهي تنسى هذه المفاضلة، ويكون الإكمال على ما قد بدأت وبنيت من صلاتك إن شاء الله تعالى. هذا هو، ويتضح إن شاء الله، والله أعلم.
Assalamu alaikum. Initials AS from Toronto. What is the ruling on woman having a child through a surrogate? And does the child become mahram for the surrogate mother?
Repeat the question.
What is the ruling on a woman having a child through a surrogate? Does the child become a mahram for the
I don't understand the question, surrogate and how mahram. Tell them please explain, inshallah. Tell the sister or the brother to explain, and we'll try our best to answer the question, inshallah ta'ala, on exactly what's meant. Fadl Talib.
A surrogate is when you have a baby that's not in your belly. So you fertilize the egg and it goes into the mother.
Tayyip. One more time. Okay, Tayyip. Let's break this down, inshallah. It's not necessarily too much with the term, but the concept as well. And not so much with the term. Everybody understand this? Okay, a mother, we have semen, sperm, we have an egg, correct? Tayyip? Okay, it's one man, two women, correct?
Yep.
Okay, Tayyip. So explain the process, please.
So there's two ways to do it.
Fadl.
Okay, the first way is the egg is frozen and they get the semen from the man. And the egg is fertilized like outside of the body.
So the egg is initially taken from who?
From the initial woman.
Clear. They remove the egg from her.
Yeah.
Then the egg is fertilized with the semen of the man. The man, what is his relation to the first woman?
It depends.
So we're talking about this what? This is what we're saying what? What we're talking about, what is the relation? Zina, zawaj, marriage, it depends. So anyhow, so he's the sperm donor, basically. Okay, so they fertilize the egg, correct? Then, as if the egg goes into another woman's body, correct? The woman gives birth to what?
A baby.
To the baby. Does the baby, if the baby is a male, become a mahram to
The surrogate.
the woman who delivered? Clear or not? Everybody understand this? We say it depends on the relationship of the what?
No, man.
Of the man. But just because his semen or his sperm fertilized the egg does not mean that he had intercourse with that woman who gave birth. Nor does it mean that they were married, right hand possession, girlfriend, boyfriend. It means none of those things. Everybody understand this? Nor does the woman necessarily become, or let's say she begins to lactate through pregnancy. Her breast milk that comes is from who? It's from the man's semen. Initially, the pregnancy. But he was never what?
And had intercourse with her.
Aywa. So it is, the issue needs to be explained. What is the relation of the first man, the second man, etc.? Everybody understand this? Inshallah. Whether it's the term surrogate or not, but the concept is most important. And be very careful where it's done. Are we sure this is this man's fluid? To just witness, it has to be what? The concept has to be what?
Clear.
Exactly on what they're doing. Inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
Those are two separate questions, right? Does a child become?
Same thing, same question. There's a branch of the first question.
This is NB from Toronto. If a kafir Holly is exposing their sins to you, is it upon you to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, or if you see them do evil?
First and foremost is it haram for a kafir to do that? Is a kafir held responsible for the rulings of the Sharia? You know that a kafir is held responsible for iman and kufr. No doubt about that. Everyone has to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umirtu an uqatila an-nas. I've been commanded to fight the people until they bear witness, until they say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Wa yu'minu bihi wa bima ji'tu bihi. And they believe in me and everything I bring. Everybody understand this? Making the shahada, becoming a Muslim. But initially, a kafir is held responsible for iman. So if a kafir is not a Muslim, the question is, are they held responsible for doing the furu' al-sharia? Pork, alcohol, hijab, and we've spoken about this before, about selling tight clothes to non-Muslim women, for example. Methadone. Are they responsible for that or not? Everybody understand this? So that's a very long difference of opinion among the people of knowledge. What's important is that whether they're held responsible or not, it's not an Islamic state. Canada is not an Islamic state. It's not something that a kafir is held responsible for doing. You sell something to a non-Muslim, pork or not. There's no Islamic punishment for selling pork in Canada to a non-Muslim, to a dhimmi or not. Everybody understand this? So if a non-Muslim is telling you about their sins, you should tell them first and foremost about Islam. Explain to them about Islam. And tell the non-Muslim, well, that's a concept in itself, a non-Muslim friend. But for argument's sake, in college or at work, say, listen, man, if you took your shahada, if you became a Muslim, I could be your friend and much more. I could be a true friend, and we could be brothers, we could be sisters. That's what I would do, bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And oftentimes, many people, they need someone just to talk to. They need a warm, friendly ear. They need a shoulder to lean on, a chest to cry upon. So perhaps if you listen to that person, and they talk about some bad things that they're doing or some challenges, and use that as a means of dawah, softening their heart, perhaps that's a good thing. But don't allow a Muslim or a non-Muslim to just come and talk to you about wickedness. I did this last night, yo, it was crazy, man. The party was like this and like that, and I had that. No. Because that's unbefitting of the ears of a Muslim. It's unbefitting of those same ears to listen to Alif Lam Mim and also listen to what happened in the party last night. It should be a different set of ears. Everybody understand this? And the same applies to the eyes. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ اللهم استعان لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
This is JW from Washington, D.C., USA. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Should takbir be said when stood up from sajda or from raising head from ground?
It's optional, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Whether you say it on the ground, whether you say it when you stand up, or whether you say it in the middle, in the actual process of ascending. And it also depends on whether you're the imam or the one behind the imam. If the imam, if you make the takbir on the ground, it's going to be confusing, and it's going to be difficult, whereas the people may get up before you. And that's a problem, not to go before the imam, as mentioned in the authentic hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay, and the severe punishment of preceding the imam in an action. Everybody understand this? So therefore, if it's an imam, obviously it's going to be a problem. The people, they're going to hear you before they see you. Their faces are on the ground. They're going to do what? They're going to hear you before they see you. They may get up before you. And that's a problem. And you have أَنْتَ قَدْ أَثَمْتَهُمْ. You've put them into a sin now. If you're praying by yourself, then it's a what? Different story. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Nasra, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Can you say isti'adha before performing salah, right before Allahu Akbar?
Can you make isti'adha before performing the salah? You should make the isti'adha inside of the salah. Allahu Akbar. You make your istiftah, your opening dua. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Kafirun, and Ruku'. That's the proper way of doing it. As far as if a person makes isti'adha. He seeks Allah's refuge, or she seeks Allah's refuge before the takbir. Not only is that not the sunnah, that's not what the Prophet ﷺ did or taught, but perhaps it means maybe someone is suffering from waswasa. And which people who suffer from waswasa, they know one of the most difficult things to do is making the initial takbir. It's proven. I've seen it with my own eyes. A brother literally fight just to make the takbiratul ula. Ruku, sujood, simple. Wudu, but just to fight, just to say it once. So we have to, I don't know, maybe a person has that problem or not. If that isn't the case and isn't a problem, make it isti'adha in the salah. Bidnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl Sharif.
If I missed the first rak'ah, salat, like 6 example of salat Isha, and you're in like a tashahhud for the second rak'ah, do I say like...
Say your question again, please. I'm sorry.
If I missed the first rak'ah, I came in, I joined the salah in the second rak'ah, like while you're making salah, and you're like on the sitting position, like saying the tashahhud, like, do I say that, or do I just like make any adhkar?
You sit down, you wait for the imam, and you say subhanallah. You make tasbih. Don't make the tashahhud, whereas it's not your tashahhud. Similar to Sheikh Anur's question. You have to follow the imam outwardly, but not necessarily inwardly. Okay? And the people of knowledge, they say that there should be no position in salat which is totally void of speech, void of some type of dhikr. So they say if it's the third rak'ah for you with the fourth rak'ah for them, you're supposed to be standing up. They're making Isha, you're making Maghrib. They say you sit and you make tasbih. Say subhanallah, subhanallah. Not to sit there silently for a minute, 2 minutes, however long the imam's tashahhud takes. But you don't necessarily have to, nor should you necessarily make it the tashahhud with them, because if you do that, now you're adding something in your prayer. You're adding something in your prayer. Wallahu a'lam.
And this was UMZ, Brooklyn, USA. How do we deal with people that accuse you of something you've never done? They've never verified or addressed what they believe occurred, and they continue to talk about you.
Leave them alone. Don't worry about them. You worrying about them, you dealing with them, you getting involved with them, perhaps that's a means of them having more fuel to their fire, more coal in their locomotive. Gives you more drive to talk about you because I know that it hurts you. I'm under your skin and I'm on your nerves. So I'm going to keep doing it. But I don't care what you say. I know I didn't do it. You don't have the proof to say it. Say whatever you want to say. Ignore you. You don't exist in my world. I wake up in the morning, wallah, I don't think about you. I go to sleep at night, wallah, I don't think about you. When I go to have my lunch break, your name doesn't come in my sandwich. Your face is not in my mirror. This is from the worst punishment for someone who's envious and jealous, or someone who's a slanderer. From the worst punishments, when they're ignored and they just get the hand. Save it. But when you feed into it, you listen to it, it clearly shows that it bothers you, it aggravates you. That they're, let's say once again, under the skin, on the nerves. Everybody got it? What's under your skin? Nerves. Everybody understand this? They're really getting on you. And they know it. It does what, Yusuf? Has a hoa. So my advice is just to leave them alone. Leave them alone, okay? As far as if you don't have the strength for this. Everyone doesn't have the sabr to do that. If you don't have enough power and fortitude to ignore this person, and then you want to handle it another way, then handle it that way. Don't talk about it, just do it. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this? This is a very important concept. Wallahi, very important. Many people, they talk about it. Keep my name out your mouth. Don't talk about me. When I see you, this and that. There's no need to say that. If you don't have the strength to be patient upon someone who's accusing you of something that you didn't do, it's no need to talk about it. If you want to punch him in his mouth, then do what? Just do it. It's no need to keep talking about it. This is a reality. Many brothers, they do this. And many sisters, they do this. Don't talk about me. If I see you, if I hear you, there's no need to say that. It's the bottom line. Whatever's going to be is what? It's going to be. Haram, halal, that's your issue. That's your own discretion. If you do something to a Muslim. But there's no point in keep what? Talking about it. And then you get a sin for it being a premeditated sin now. I saw Brother Yusuf. He said something to me. He slandered me. I lost my sabr and I punched him in his face. I lost my patience. Allah could forgive me. Because I was extremely mad. I was extremely upset. I was extremely hurt. How can my brother Yusuf say this about me? That's not the same as me what? talking about it, threatening them. Everybody understand this? That's how the shaitan gets you into his lasso. He wraps you up and he ties you up. So either you're going to turn away from the person, ignore the person, وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Allah says, turn away from the ignoramuses. And what's meant by ignoramuses is not someone who doesn't have information, who doesn't know, who doesn't have no knowledge. Someone who's behaving ignorantly. Allah says, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ أَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Turn away from those people. The Ibad al-Rahman. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ إيش؟ بس طيب. They leave it alone. سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ لَا نَبْتَغِي الْجَاهِلِينَ. Another verse, Surah Al-Qasas. Allah says, أَعْرَضُوا عَنْهُ. They do what? Turn away from it. They pass by it. The verse says, and they say, سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ لَا نَبْتَغِي الْجَاهِلِينَ. Peace be upon you. We don't want anything from the ignorant people. So just leave them alone. Abandon them. As I said, if you do not have the strength for this, because everybody doesn't. We have to be real with ourselves. Every brother and sister doesn't have the ability to just turn away from someone. Some people get really aggravated. Someone's lying on me. Someone is accusing me. Someone's slandering me. If you don't have the sabr, if you're not willing to ask Allah for the sabr, then do what you're going to do and do what? That's it. Khalas. Move on with your life. Whether you beat them up, throw them down the steps, confront them in public. Listen, don't mention that about me anymore. That's haram. Ittaqillah. I'm your brother in Islam. That's not true. Qul hatu burhanakum. Bring your proof if you're telling the truth. Do what you're going to do and that's it. Don't keep talking about it. Don't make a campaign out of it. Don't go on the internet texting, flan. That's all right. Either you deal with it this way or what? Deal with it the other way. No in between. That's my nasiha. And Allah Azza wa Jal will judge between the people on the day of judgment. Allah will judge and He will rule what? On the day of the فِيمَا كَانُوا فِيهِ يَخْتَلِفُونَ. Allah is the judge on the day over everything that people fought and differed. He did it, He didn't do it. He said it, He didn't say it. He stole it, Allah will judge on that day. Leave it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's my advice. And Allah knows best. Once again, as a disclaimer, I never said it's permissible to punch a Muslim in his face. Which sometimes it may be. Self-defense. Or sometimes you may have to stop the zalim. I'm not saying you go hit a Muslim, but the general concept of unsur akhaka zaliman or madluman. Help your brother where he's an oppressor or what? Or an oppressed. And as a wise man once said to me, an older brother, unfortunately, some street wisdom. He said there's some people who only understand your words when there's blood in their mouths. They can't hear your words unless it's blood in their mouths. Then they say, okay, now I get the point. And this is a reality of life. It's a bitter reality of life. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu is quoted to have said, أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَزَعُ بِالسُّلْطَانِ مَا لَا يَزَعُ بِالْقُرْآنِ. He says that there are things that Allah will allow to be inhibitors, to keep the people away through the leader, not with the Quran. Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't go near zina. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُ. Don't eat the wealth of orphan unjustly. Everybody understand this? وَأَوْفُوا. Allah says, fulfill the scales. إِذَا كِلْتُمْ وَزِنُوا بِالْقِسْطَاسِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Allah says, don't cheat the people. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Everybody hears these verses in the Quran, but it's not the same as a ruler who goes in the marketplace. Anyone that I catch cheating is going to get flogged 50 times. Anybody I catch alone with a girl that's not his wife is going to be locked up. Anyone I catch doing this is going to be beat, is going to be that. Which of the two is going to be stronger? No doubt, the Sultan. The words of Allah aren't powerful enough. The words of Allah are not strong enough. Not for every person. Some people, yes. That's all they need, as Allah says to hellfire. That's all they need. But some people, they can't understand the words until it's what? Violence. Your back being whipped. You being locked up. You being fought. You being beat. You being stoned. Now they understand, oh, I get it. It's haram to do this. And the same applies to street wisdom. There's some people you may warn, you may be kind to, and they won't appreciate it. The moment you punch them in their face, then they say, I get it now. I understand. And if you want to proof of this, look at bullies in school. You tell a bully, leave you alone. Leave me alone. It's my milk money. It's my stuff. He's not going to listen to you. The moment you show him that you're not afraid and you put some physical harm on him, then he does what? He's your friend now. We can share the milk. You bring me some cookies to school the next day. This is a reality. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Question online. Nasra from Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. So that's the same question. Sister Fatima from Toronto. Does the Ma'moon say the takbir for each action in the salah, even though the Imam says it?
Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, the one praying behind the Imam, if he says Allahu Akbar after the Imam, then inshallah there's nothing wrong with that. The issue of saying the takbirat al-intiqaliyah when you move from one position to another is a long discussion in itself. Is it mandatory or not? But if you do it, and if you consider it to be a preferable thing, then there's nothing wrong with saying it after the Imam and behind the Imam. La ba's bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas that is a means of following the Imam in complete manner, in a complete form, as long as it's afterwards and not before. Wallahu alam. Fadl Talib.
Is it permissible for a woman to freeze her eggs?
Is it permissible for what?
For a woman to freeze her eggs.
Freeze her eggs. Which eggs is she freezing? What freezer? The house? You freeze a carton of eggs? At the end of the day, it depends on why she's freezing them. What's the purpose of them freezing? And who has access to these eggs? Genealogy is very serious and very dangerous. Playing around with someone's lineage, someone's blood. Who has access to these eggs? Some just, pious Muslim. These eggs are saved for her husband who's in jail, her husband who's away, to fertilize them or to give them to someone else. Ajnabi. This is dangerous. And this is why the people of knowledge, they say, when it comes to issues of medicine, that it's insufficient for there to just be medical theory or even medical fact. They say that it has to be a tabib, Muslim, adil, a just Muslim doctor. In other words, a Muslim who has what? Integrity. And there are non-Muslims, we're talking generally now, there are non-Muslims who have integrity in general. But in the Islamic Sharia system, the Islamic state, integrity is only based off of what? Deen. Initially. Everybody understand this? We have a fasiq, someone who drinks alcohol. And in Islam, let alone just to say back to the street wisdom, this person who's a drunkard, in general, people who drink don't necessarily lie that much. It's well known. They say 3 men who never lie. And from the 3 men who never lie is the drunkard. Intoxication removes the barrier of how people really think and feel. You want to know something? You want to hear somebody talk the truth? Expose someone, get them drunk, and they'll start talking. Or they say, get them angry. The second person who doesn't lie is one who's angry in the beginning of the anger. After 5-10 minutes, it's different. But when you first get angry, damn, you this. I hate Indian people. No, I was angry. I didn't mean that. That's not true. That's not true. You said what you felt. And that's why it slipped off your tongue when you became angry in the beginning. And the third person who never lies, they say, is the child. Children that are innocent, they tell their emotions and how they actually feel. Everybody understand this? So a drunk man, he may never lie. He may drink all of the time, but he doesn't lie. You ask the drunk man in the corner, who walked by? He says, Fulan walked by. He's not lying. This person, the store, Kevin, they'll tell you the truth. Who shot such and such? Who did this? He'll tell you the truth. He's a drunkard. Who was in the sister's house? Her boyfriend, he says, he'll tell you, yeah, Sharif, he was there. Drunk uncle, he says he was there. But Sharif said, Wallah, he says, listen, Sharif came into the house last night. And he's half drunk. Exactly. And the Sharia is a what? Fasiq. Even though this drunkard man has some integrity. But in the Islamic court system, he has what? No integrity. So the same applies to medicine, to doctors. There has to be a level and a standard of what? Integrity.
What if it's just for preservation?
For what purpose?
She has a disease, and if she, like, the treatment would deteriorate.
That's a different story. As long as it's going to be preserved and outside of the hands of people that lack the necessary Islamic integrity. For her husband, for the one that she's with to fertilize them, that's a different story. It's a different story. But where they're going to be preserved? Who has access to them? And just because non-Muslim doesn't mean they don't have no integrity. There may be a system. There may be a time in which there's a system in which it's on record. No one can play around with the eggs. But there's the general theoretical rule of the Sharia. Wallahu alam.
Question from online. Initials MD from Toronto. Is it permissible to read Arabic, books of Arabic even if you don't fully understand everything, in order to practice and might misunderstand a thing.
There's a difference between reading and practice. There's a difference between having a class and I ask my students, what's the ruling on a sister wiping up her khimar? And she says, it's halal. I feel it's permissible. This is my research. Kala. That doesn't mean that you're going out to the sisters and telling them it's halal to do it. The class is theory. Fatwa, answering the question online, is actual
Application.
and what you can't say about Allah unless you're sure. Even if you think, do what? Refrain from saying it. Everybody got this? So in the classroom setting, we're having a sparring session. ما حكم كذا؟ هل هذا الحديث صحيح؟ كذا كذا كذا. It's praiseworthy. It's recommended for you to do what? Spar, to participate, to throw out an answer, to try, to research. Everybody understand this? When you're on the streets, in the masjid, that's a what? Total different story. Everybody got this? It's a what? Total different story. So you can read the book as much as you want. You may not understand it. You may think that you understand it. That doesn't mean that you practice it. That doesn't mean that you tell someone else. But nothing should stop you from sparring. Nothing should stop you from reading, from trying. Everybody get this? I can tell you, me personally, before many years ago, there was a time in which I had books and I would read them and I didn't understand what they were. Some of the stuff maybe was scary, but I kept reading them, kept reading them, kept reading them, kept reading them. And eventually, through learning the proper steps, my own personal things, teachers, so on and so forth, I began to understand and pick up and learn. You learn sarf, you learn nahu, you learn the vocabulary, you learn al-adab al-arabi, you learn the poetry, so on and so forth, then you get it. So you have to push yourself. You have to do what? You have to push yourself. It doesn't come on a silver platter, as we say all of the time. It comes through struggle. It comes through hardships. And from the struggle, from the hardship of seeking knowledge is being lost. Whether that's a good thing. As one of my students, she asked me, she says, how is it a good thing for us to be confused when we research? How is it a good thing for us to do the debate and I don't get it? It's a good thing. Start off the student by breaking the student, confusing the student, frustrating the student, and then you put them back together and you build them. Just like you take the pieces of metal, the pieces of iron, you take the ore, you put it together, you burn it, burn it, burn it. You take it out and you bang it and you bend it and you twist it and you fold it. Then you do what? Burn it again. You take it out another time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, until there's hundreds of layers in that piece of steel. And for whatever you're trying to make, whether it's a knife or a sword or whatever you're trying to make, and it's solid, it's forged. Then you sharpen it, then you polish it, then you decorate it. And then you have an eternal piece of metal that won't rust, that won't break, that won't bend. It doesn't happen overnight. Everybody understand this? So you have to be confused in the beginning. You should be lost in the beginning. You should be frustrated. I mean, that's a sign of you moving in the right path when you're not pleased with yourself. When I don't get it, it's too hard. That's a good thing in the beginning. It's a good thing. Wallahu alam. And the student, just as the teacher has to exert himself or exert herself, the student has to exert themselves even more. And just like there's an etiquette of the teacher, there has to be an etiquette of the student. And from the most important etiquettes is for the student to appreciate and to respect the expertise of the teacher. Trust the teacher. I tell you to read the book. It's too hard, Mufti. It's too difficult. Read the book. Udkhulu alayhim al-bab. What did Musa say to them? What? Enter Jerusalem. When you enter Jerusalem, he says what? You will win. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا. He says, put your trust in Allah. That's it. That's all you gotta do is enter the gates. The Jews were scaredy cats. They were cowards. إِنَّ فِيهَا قَوْمًا جَبَّارِينَ. It says they're too strong, too big, too powerful. I said, well, إِنَّا لَن نَدْخُلَهَا مَا دَامُوا فِيهَا. As long as they're there, we're not going to enter there. We call these things what? Fire dragons. Unfortunately, these things which chase you around and call you to be afraid and scared. You have to put your trust in Allah first and foremost. Then you have to trust your teacher. And there's nothing wrong with being confused in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with that. Wallahu alam.
Question from online, Nasra, Toronto, Canada. Is it mandatory to read Fatiha after the Imam is finished during Salah?
There's a difference of opinion with regards to al-qira'ah khalf al-imam, reading behind the imam. The opinion that I feel is most correct and Allah knows best is that when the imam is reciting out loud, you should remain silent. Do not recite behind the imam in the first two rak'ah of Maghrib and the first two rak'ah of Isha and Fajr. That's the opinion I feel is the strongest. as has been explained in detail by many of the ulama. However, those who don't read and research themselves and find out a conclusion, stick with the safest view. Release, or at least recite Surah Al-Fatiha behind the Imam. Wallahu alam. But if you research it and you feel what I've just said, then you stick with what you feel is correct, and not necessarily always the ahwat, the safest view. It depends on person to person. Wallahu alam.
Questioner, initials UN from Harlem, New York City, New York. Does changing your baby's diaper break your wudu?
No, changing the baby's diaper does not break the wudu, regardless whether you touch the baby's private part or not. Touching something that's najasa or not, it does not necessarily break your wudu. And Allah knows best.
Questioner, MC from New Jersey. Is there a Hadith Disciple debate club?
Is there a Hadith Disciple debate club? Yes and no. There is and there isn't. There are certain classes that I teach in which I try, I say only try, I cannot force anyone. I try to encourage the students to understand and to appreciate the importance of debating. Because debating is much more than just debating. It's like boxing. People, they just see on pay-per-view, they see the fighter, Mike Tyson, go into the ring, knocking out people, first round, body shot, liver, kidney, knock a grown man out to the floor like a baby. Wow. But they don't see the countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears. The training, the film watching, the jogging, the running, the rope, this, that, the speed bag, the heavy bag, the dietary discipline of what? Mike Tyson. In other words, fighting in the ring, winning is nothing more than a result of all of that what? Ijtihad that he made, let alone his coach, his trainers. Countless hours of ijtihad. Physical, mental preparation, watching tape after tape after tape. Jack Dempsey, Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, watching these boxers fight, their style, their technique, and watching the opponent's flaws, the opponent's habits, the opponents, how they fight, with the cracks and the chinks in their armor. So the fight in the ring, the knockout, is nothing more than a thamara, it's a fruit. So the farmer, how long does the farmer spend sowing the seeds? How much water does he pour? How many mornings come in which there's sunlight? How many bugs, weasels, and grasshoppers and locusts are kept away from this piece of this fruit right here, this tree? Everybody understand this? And that apple that you get is nothing more than a what? The product of years of hard work. Everybody got this or not? And we can make many examples. The same applies to debating. You only debated because you researched. You only researched because you can read Arabic. You can study Arabic, or even in English. You picked up the book. You listened to the class. You went to 5 or 6 different encyclopedias, different volumes. And the result and the product of that is the debate. Everybody understand this? Let alone debate teaching the student to have self-confidence. The debate teaches students to have self-esteem, which many people have problems with. The debate teaches the students how to work as a team. Teamwork. He's the researcher. He's the main speaker. This person is the one who's going to write it down. He's the summarizer. Teamwork. The debate also allows you to get rid of the concept of ego. As the wise man said, everybody learns how to win, but no one what? Learns how to lose. No one wants to study how to lose and how to take a loss, how to take a defeat. Everybody understand this? And there are many other fawaid that come from debating. So there are some of my students that I try. I hope that Allah allows them to take the advice to get the concept of debating. So from that aspect, yeah, there is a Hadith Disciple debate team in those personal classes that I give. As far as a general standard public open debate team thing, no, we don't have that. Maybe it's a good thing. Perhaps we'll start it. I say to you, perhaps you should put down some ideas, formulate and regulate some things, and perhaps if you lead, we will follow. Inshallah. Allah knows best. This will conclude our Q&A session tonight. Unless there are any other questions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Thank you for your time, your respect, and for your attention. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Sister Nasra, Toronto, Canada. If a woman gets her menses after the time of Dhuhr comes in, but she still hasn't prayed Dhuhr, does she have to owe this salah?
Yes, she used to make up Salat al-Dhuhr. The menses came in, Asr is not in yet, Dhuhr is still in, she has not made Dhuhr yet, she has to make up Salat al-Dhuhr. Some of the fuqaha even say, If Asr comes in, Mathalan, and she did make dhuhr, she has to make the dhuhr again. Mathalan, for example. But that's a longer issue right there. What's important is that the salah is in, she's mukhatabah. She has been addressed. She's been called out to. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or you believe. Then 20 minutes, 10 minutes, the menses came. She had the time to make the dhuhr before she knew about the what? The menses. So she has to make up that prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That's in brief. And that's the last question that we will take tonight. Jazakumullahu khairan.